John William McGarvey, he was born in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. His father died when he was pretty young, raised by his uncles, very wealthy. And his mother remarried, and for a time the stepfather, he wanted to encourage education in John, and so John decided that he would go to, he hadn't really made for religion, but his family was involved in the Christian movement, so he decided that he would go to Bethany College. So he goes to Bethany College, and at the time, W.K. Pendleton, the son-in-law of Alexander Campbell, is the president, and he's the preacher in the congregation. And it was around, I want to say it was, I'm trying to think of the day. I can't remember the day. But he responded to the invitation. They went down behind the church building in Buffalo Creek, and Pendleton baptized him for their mission scene. When he graduated from Bethany, he went off to Fulton, Missouri, started a congregation there, preached, and had pretty well determined he'd spend the rest of his life in Missouri. But there was a preacher here when the war came on, or was about to come on. The preacher at the Main Street Church was Winthrop Hartley Hobson. And W.H. Hobson had strong Southern sympathies. And this was really kind of a war ground with the sympathy of people. You had people that wanted to stay with the North, people wanted to stay with the South. So, it's right in that area. So Hobson approached the elders and said, I think that it would be better for the congregation if I were to leave, and he said, I've got the perfect man. You need to hire the young preacher over in Missouri, J.W. McGarvey. So they hired McGarvey. McGarvey comes in. He lives the rest of his life here in Lexington. He's here about 3 years, and he gets involved in the College of the Bible. And he begins as a teacher. Later, he becomes the president of the school. And of course, when the process of changing over and transitioning to the University of Kentucky with Bowman and everything, there was quite a difference and quite a battle. There is a book, I can't think of who wrote it, but it's the history of the Lexington Theological Seminary, which is the College of the Bible, what it is now. Actually, I think they're defunct. Did they close the doors?
Last couple of years.
About a year or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a history on the Lexington Theological Seminary, and the writer really spends a great deal of time. There was a time when McGarvey is fired by Bowman, and so he goes back over to the church and starts teaching classes in the basement of the church building. Starts another College of the Bible. And so the thing about it is, most of the students that he had in the College of the Bible came to study under him. And so it just seemed to be an obvious choice for them to just march down the street and continue classes under J.W. McGarvey in the basement of the new church building. And so you have a College of the Bible in the church, and you've got University of Kentucky that still has a College of the Bible. He selects, Bowman selects a young preacher by the name of Moses Lard to become the president of the College of the Bible. One of the most, I guess, sad things for Moses Lard is when he becomes the president of the College of the Bible. He's a great guy, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And because he, people kind of branded him. If you've got large quarterlies or the bound volumes of that, some of the greatest writings, some of the great historical information on the Restoration movement. He has an article in his first, I think it was in his first volume, that is one of the best treatises I have ever seen on the nature of New Testament Christianity. Just really the concept of going back to the Bible and being Christians like to read about the New Testament. Powerful, Lard. When Lard died, he was living here. He was buried here for a short time. Then they took his body over to north of St. Joseph, Missouri, where he's married. He had a family plot there. J.W. McGarvey, you know what? There's just story after story after story about McGarvey. One of the things that I like to recall is the fact that McGarvey was, he never believed in the use of instrumental music. He didn't like it, but he tolerated it. He would preach in churches where they did use the instrument. And there was let's see, what was his name? Brother Sewell from out at Abilene. Jesse Parker Sewell. In 1950, Brother Sewell, and this is in the Harding Lectures for 1950, he tells the story about when he was a young preacher over in Dallas that J.W. McGarvey came out there. Of course, you know, he dies in 1911. So this is 1950 when he reflects on that. So McGarvey is supposed to speak that day, and Brother Sewell is sitting on the front row, and Brother McGarvey leans over to Brother Sewell, and he says, you know, you folks did it the right way. You know, as if to say, I regret my allowing it and tolerating it. He said, making a stand for what is right was the best thing to do. And so it was, that gives you an idea about the allegiances McGarvey had. When they brought instrumental music into the Broadway Christian Church, it was displayed before the whole city. It was in the newspaper. The church voted on it. They took a poll of the church, and the vote was in the newspaper as to whether we'll bring the instrument in. Well, when it was decided to bring it in, their preacher handed in his resignation. He left and attended the 2nd Street Church, where his good friend I.B. Grubb was already meeting, and they were glad to see him come and be a member there. When he died, there was not a building that was big enough to house the funeral. And he had left specific instruction that he didn't want to have instrumental music used in his funeral. But because it was in the Broadway Christian Church, is where that was held, they played instrumental music anyway. So, but McGarvey had he was probably one of the most educated men among us in his day. He would probably be considered as a 2nd generation Campbells and Fannings and Walter Scotts and others being 1st generation. He'd be a second to 3rd generation educator and church leader, but McGarvey's probably one of the bigger names that you'll ever read about in Restoration history. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like to get a picture of the group, if we could, kind of get you all standing.